Welcome to the All Clemson Tigers Baseball Show, which is part of the Clemson Maven multimedia platform covering all things Clemson sports. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. You can also leave a comment as well, and we will definitely respond back. If you're listening to us today, please subscribe and download us at All Clemson. On all Clemson on YouTube. I got tongue tied there, Jason. As you can see, Jason Priester's joining me today as we kind of review Clemson's week that was and look forward to the week that will be here as we get ready for another exciting week of Clemson baseball. And Jason Priester, dude, I guess that's the best way to describe it, is exciting Clemson baseball, because right now this is a fun team to watch, man. And they make you nervous if you're watching them, and but at the same time they make you excited, and that's what makes them fun to watch right now. They're a good television watch if you're watching Clemson baseball.
They absolutely make it interesting. Make no mistake. Especially this weekend, there were a couple of very interesting baseball games where they kind of had to hold on in one, and kind of held on a little bit again yesterday. Probably got a little bit of luck and Saturday, and sometimes if you're good, you need a little bit of luck along the way. The baseball god smiling down on them Saturday with that interference call. But yeah, this is definitely a fun team to watch. Like we talked about last week, it makes it fun to go back to the ballpark again. There's a different feeling surrounding this team right now. They're playing with a swagger and with a level of confidence not seen out of a Clemson baseball team in probably a few years now.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot. I was talking with someone yesterday about this. It reminds me a lot of the 2010 team. I think me and you've kind of talked a little bit about that too. There's some similarities. You can say maybe the 2011 team, because they got really hot down the stretch that season as well. You can even compare them to the 2016 team, Monty's first year when he was head coach. They got on a run late, not to the extent that where Clemson started this run. It was more like the last couple weeks for that Clemson team and into the ACC tournament they got hot, where this one has got hot since April the 4th. Okay, and so first of all, let's look back at last week. Go on the road to Coastal Carolina in Conway, where the ghost of whatever happens in that stadium, just weird things happen, and it was no different this past weekend. This past week, you were there in Conway. Tigers get a win there. Again, another game where they're hitting the tar out of the baseball, but then at the end they're having to hang on because, Coastal Carolina, they're a good hitting team too. And so Clemson had to hang on to win that game. But another good, impressive win on the road for the Tigers.
Yeah, the guys in that lineup, mostly from top to bottom, are just in sync right now. It looked for a minute like they were going to rule Coastal there in that game, and then Coastal made a little bit of a comeback and kept that from happening like it did in the first time they played. But yeah, that was Clemson exercised some demons in that ballpark last Wednesday night. I know last season when they went to Conway, they got killed. I think it was 17-2, and I think they got beaten one side of the year before that too. So they exercised some demons in that ballpark, and that is a beautiful ballpark. Let me add that. That is one of my favorite venues to go to. If you ever go, get the nachos and barbecue. It is awesome.
And the popcorn.
Yeah. Wheels of popcorn, man. Yeah. But, that is a very good Coastal Carolina team that Clemson has now twice, beaten, not just beaten, but beaten decisively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Coastal Carolina at that time was ranked in the top 10 RPI. Now they flip-flop. Clemson has taken over Coastal Carolina in the RPI, as they should when you beat them twice. And then do what they went and did this past weekend, which was they went to Blacksburg. Not an easy place to play, especially here lately with a Virginia Tech team that seems like they can score more runs than their basketball team can points, because they are one of the best hitting teams that I have ever personally seen. It's going back to last year. They were so good at the plate last year. I think they finished second in the conference last year and were so good. A lot of those guys came back, and so they're still a good hitting team. And, we saw that this weekend. But we also saw the fact that Clemson is hitting the tar out of the baseball too, and doing it in different ways, not just always hitting the long ball, which they did hit a few of them this weekend, but they're getting doubles. they're getting hits with 2 outs. And we go back to Friday night where they won the Friday night game in 8 runs in the 4th inning. And they had 6 straight hits with 2 outs and scored 5 runs with 2 outs right there. Or 6 runs with 2 outs. That's amazing, the kind of hitting they put on display in that Friday night game and went on to an easy win. And we'll get into what happened Saturday and Sunday here in a second. But that Friday night game, JP, that was an impressive win for Clemson, and the fact that they knew they had to score some runs, and they just put on a hitting clinic in that game, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you're gonna face Virginia Tech and you're gonna beat Virginia Tech, you're gonna have to score some runs. That team hits over 300 overall as a team. They've hit over 90 home runs. They can absolutely mash. We saw that this weekend. That is a very good lineup, mostly from top to bottom. Team Clemson probably would prefer not to see when they get to Durham, but yeah, that Friday game was crazy. It just shows another way where this team can beat you in a lot of different ways. In the sweep against Louisville, Clemson kind of struggled to hit with guys in scoring position. And that Friday game, like you say, 6 consecutive 2-out hits in the big inning there, and they just continue to keep doing it in different ways.
Yeah, they get a big win on Friday night. Then they go into Saturday and another game where again they get big hits with 2 outs, 2-out RBIs. I think Clemson finished the series with 15 hits. It was either 15 or 14 hits, or RBIs, I should say, with 2 outs. I mean, that's amazing to do that kind of run production. And they needed every single one of them in those last 2 games because, and we're going to talk about Saturday night first because Clemson leads 4-1. Virginia Tech comes back and ties it. Then Clemson goes into the 9th inning and puts up a 5 spot and is up 9-4. And you're thinking, okay, everything's fine, but it's not when you play Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech at the top of their lineup came in, and they start off with a hit. Then they get a 2-run homer. Then they get a solo homer, and all of a sudden it's a one. Then they get another hit. It's a 1-run game with 1 out and runners on the corners, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Runners on the corners.
And then the craziest thing happened. You don't see it happen too often, but it looks like Virginia Tech ties the game up with a fielder's choice RBI. But hold on a second. The guy on first base trying to break up the double play basically plays middle linebacker and takes out, I believe, was it Blackwell or was it Bertram?
I think
it was Bertram at this second base. Bertram trying to make the double play, fields the ball, goes to tag. He steps on the base, and as he's going to throw, he has to jump high to get the ball over to first base because the Virginia Tech player did not slide, did not go down. He basically took Bertram out, and luckily the second base umpire sitting right there. He makes the call right away. Interference out right there, double play. They talked about it. They went back and reviewed, which I don't really know why they went to review because it was so obvious. But it was like, maybe a 15-minute wait? It seemed like 15 minutes. Maybe it was 10. But it seemed like a 15-minute wait it was the longest 9th inning I've ever seen in my life because both teams had 5 hits. Each team, they scored a total of 9 runs, and then you had that long delay at the end to see if Clemson actually won the game. What a crazy 9th inning. Have you ever witnessed a 9th inning like that in your life?
No, it was crazy. And when Clemson gets that 1 run in the top of the 9th, you're thinking, okay, man, they've got this. You got Ryan Ammons in that bullpen. You got Rob Hughes. You haven't used either one of those guys yet. Clemson's got this. Didn't they tack on 3 more or 4 more and go up 5, and you are feeling really good now. But, you just can never count this Virginia Tech team out. They can just – it is impressive what they can do at the plate. And what they did in the bottom of that 9th inning, they did it against Ammons. They did it against Hughes. Two guys that have been Clemson's best on the back end during this turnaround. Two would have been very good pitchers this season. Makes it even that much more impressive. But, yeah, you're right. The umpire called that interference call immediately. I didn't realize exactly what had happened at the time. I just noticed all the players running on the field, and I'm thinking, what the heck's going on, man? He sure looked safe to me, because he probably would have beat that out without the interference. But definitely a crazy inning, crazy ending. One I have not witnessed in quite some time, maybe not ever.
Yeah. The only thing I can compare it to was the ninth inning of the Super Regional game against Alabama back in 2010 when Clemson had like an 11-3 lead or something going into the last inning, and Alabama scores like 7 runs, and all of a sudden everybody in Doug Kingsmore is like sitting on the edge of their hands because this is the final game of the Super Regional. Winner goes to Omaha, and Clemson blew like a big lead late, and they're hanging on for dear life. That's kind of what it reminded me of. Different situation, different odds at that point. But nonetheless, a huge win for Clemson, a big call and a big play because then Clemson clinched the series. Sets up yesterday. Again, Clemson comes out hitting the baseball again, builds a big lead. They're up 9-4 going into the late innings. But as we said before, it's never over till it's over. And here comes Virginia Tech again. They just start again, doing it again, and I think just putting ulcers in all Clemson fans across America.
Yeah, it was almost like a repeat. Not quite as close as Saturday, but you get that feeling of, oh no, here we go again. And Clemson's already used Ammons and they've already used Hughes, their best guys out of the bullpen. So you sit once Caden Grice comes out, you're wondering, who's going to close this thing down, who's going to nail it down. But credit to Tristan Smith, who came in and got a huge out, with 2 on, and in bottom of the ninth to the end that thing, man. That was a big time, high leverage situation, and he came in and got it done.
Yeah, that is the thing I take out of because it was a tough week for the Clemson pitching. We knew it was going to be the 2 teams that were playing, that it was going to be hard. I will say Caden Grice, I thought, settled down after that second inning. Clemson got down 3-2 after those first 2 innings. He settled down though, and they, he went through the 6th inning okay, and kind of looked like Caden Grice had done the last few weeks. And so, but as you mentioned, it's so hard to that Virginia Tech lineup is so good. They hit so well. It's hard to keep them down for long. And so, you just knew they were going to make some comeback at some point. But for Smith to come in that situation and put out the Flames when they got the go-ahead run at the plate and a chance to win the game, that was huge to get that, to have him as a freshman late in the season in a big-time game because of what it means in the ACC standings, and we'll talk about that in a second. That was big, and so it was good. If you're a Clemson fan, you like seeing the fact that your freshman pitcher, again, is showing he can come in big situations and can make pitches and get yourself out, because that's what they're going to need if they're going to make a big postseason run. They're going to need somebody to come out of that bullpen that they can trust. Hughes has done a good job the last couple of weeks, so he had a bad day on Saturday, but he's been pretty solid most of the year, and so you're not going to hold that against him as much. So we'll see what happens as they go forward now, as Clemson now this week will host USC Upstate, and then they will host North Carolina in a key series, a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. And JP, since April the 4th, starting with that 16-6 win over Coastal Carolina, Clemson is 19-4 overall, 15-3 in the ACC. They've won 8 straight games overall. They've won 13 of their last 14 overall. They've won 6 straight ACC series. They've won 3 of their last 4 series have been sweeps, and they're 11-1 against ACC competition in those 12 games. Man, this is amazing what this team is doing right now.
It's hard to actually put into words to describe what we've seen in the past 5 weeks or whatever it's been, close to 6 weeks now. It has been an impressive turnaround for a team that started 2-7 in ACC play. You start out 2-6, go to Tallahassee, lose the first game down there, and it's looking rather bleak. Let's be honest. You're not even thinking regional. You're definitely not thinking hosting a regional. And now here we are, 1 week left in the regular season, and there is a possibility that this team could end up being a national seed. It is crazy when you compare it to where we were, April the 1st, April the 2nd.
Yeah, I think right now, unless unless they totally just fall off, the wheels fall off, and I don't want to say anything, so I'm not going to say it, but I think they're definitely, like sitting here right here today, I'm saying Clemson is probably 90% chance they're hosting a regional, and then I would say they're probably 85% chance going to host a super regional if they continue to play the way they're playing. They're, like you mentioned, they're number 8 in the RPI now. The rankings came out today for D1 baseball. They have the Tigers ranked 7. They moved up 9 spots. So your top 10 in the rankings, your top 10 in the RPI, you got the number 3 strength of schedule in the country, and that's going to go up because North Carolina's sitting there at like number 22 or 24. So playing North Carolina this week is going to help your RPI if you get wins. It's going to help your strength of schedule if you get wins. So they're not really going to fall there in those 2 areas. And so if you can win this series, just win it. Don't want to get greedy, right? Don't you just win the series. Then you're sitting in a great situation. And so here's what it means for the ACC standings. If Clemson wins 1 game, just 1, then they'll finish no worse than the number 5 seed in the tournament. Okay? So if they just beat North Carolina once, they're going to finish no worse than number 5. If they win 2, they're in the top 4. Now, why does that matter? Well, that means Clemson's going to be one of the top 4 seeds. The ACC does it in a weird way, so people know. They put them in pods. So there'll be one of those top 4 seeds. If they win 1 game in the pod, if they win that first game, they're going to the semifinals, the ACC tournament. That's what it means. It means win the first game if you're the number 1 seed and you're going to the semifinals. So it's like almost automatic if you win a game in the ACC tournament that you get in, because Clemson would win the tiebreakers in that pod, if all the tiebreakers. So that's one, and the reason that matters is because you'll probably play the higher seed in that first game. So Clemson would play at this point. I think I got Clemson paired with Clemson, North Carolina. So they'll play North Carolina again, and then I believe it's Virginia Tech. If Clemson finishes third in the ACC, if Clemson sweeps North Carolina, they land the number 2 overall record in the ACC. And JP, why is that important? Because I think that locks Clemson as a super regional host possible. In other words, a top 8 national seed. I think if they sweep North Carolina this week, it doesn't matter what they do in the ACC tournament. I think finishing number 2 in the ACC overall, winning 20 conference games in this conference this year, I think they're locked in as a super regional possibility.
No, I agree. If you take care of business against Upstate this week in the midweek and you sweep North Carolina this weekend at home, I think you have absolutely made your case to be not just a host, but a top 8 seed. And I think a very solid case at that. It would be hard to argue against Clemson, if they finished with that 2nd seed in the ACC right there behind Wake Forest, who is the top team in the country.
Exactly. And, and that would be the last time you lost a series. You would have finished the ACC winning 14 of your last 15 conference games since that Wake Forest series. In other words, they would actually have a better record than Wake Forest in those 15 games, because Wake Forest has lost 2 conference games since then, including this past week where they lost to Florida State on Sunday. So, that's why I think Clemson would cement a top 8 national seed ranking. Now, where they would be, I don't know. That's where the ACC tournament could help them, because if they go in and they get to the ACC semifinals, then they can move up in the seedings. And now you're talking about being maybe a number 6, number 5, even number 4 national seed. And why is that important? Well, the higher you go as a seed, the better, the more likely, the easier, I should say, the competition. Whereas the 8 seed's going to play the harder teams that's going to be left in the field. The number 1 seed's going to play the least, right? So the higher you move up, the easier it gets to get to Omaha. That's why all this play is important. That's why we're talking about all this, because a lot of people say, well, just win baseball games and it don't matter. Well, it does matter, because if you win, it puts you in a better position to get to Omaha, and that's the ultimate goal, is to get to Omaha.
I had this exact conversation with somebody the other day. I was saying something about the possibility of a top 8 seed. And somebody said, "Well, it don't matter. The only thing matters is what you do when you get to the postseason." And I was like, "It absolutely matters. You want to position yourselves as best you can to advance in the postseason, and that's what we're talking about here: finishing up the regular season strong and positioning yourselves as." Best you can, as high of a seed as you can to give you the best shot at postseason success. It absolutely matters. Being a top 8 seed matters. It all matters. Not just can't just say, well, what they do in the postseason is the only thing that matters. It's all part of it is how you get there and what you do to get there and position yourselves to give you the best chance to win and advance.
Yeah, absolutely. And dude, this week is going to be huge because it's going to feel like regional baseball for 2 reasons. Okay, first reason is it is regional softball. As we all know now, the Clemson softball team is going to host a regional, which is right across the parking lot. Games are going to be 3 o'clock, 5:30, I believe, somewhere in that range. Hadn't officially came out as times, but I think that's what they're everybody's saying that those times are going to fall in. So you got that going on right across the parking lot. It's not even across the street. It's literally right across the parking lot. Over there at McWhorter Stadium. And then North Carolina comes into town, a team who has won 8 of their last 10 games. They've won 5 straight ACC games. They're playing their best baseball right now as well. And look, if North Carolina beats Clemson, and then that could get them possibly into the top 4 themselves. They're trying to get into that top 4 of the ACC standings, and they do well in the ACC tournament. They're looking at hosting a regional, and that's big for them. Both these teams are in the NCAA tournament. We know that, but now both teams are trying to position themselves the best possibility. So this weekend series against North Carolina, it's going to feel like a regional. It really is. The atmosphere at Doug Kingsmore Stadium is going to be electric, and then when you throw in the softball atmosphere that's going to be over there as well, man, I don't know if Clemson's had a bigger weekend this time of year ever than what it's going to have this weekend.
No, I think you're right. Especially during baseball season, because we've not had that softball program over there but a few years. They've only hosted the 3rd time now?
This is their second straight year.
Second time they got snubbed.
3rd regional.
More or less. That's right. So, no, we haven't experienced anything quite like this anyways. And I agree. I think this is going to be an electric atmosphere in Clemson this weekend. There is a lot on the line for both of these teams. 2 of the hottest teams in the ACC right now facing off postseason implications, national seed implications for Clemson, hosting implications for North Carolina. It doesn't get much better than that.
It's going to be fun. Of course, before all that, Clemson has USC Upstate. What can you tell me about USC Upstate? All I know is this is a team that went to Greenville and played Clemson up at Floor Field and spanked the Tigers a few months back. Now, this is a different Clemson team. It's a different USC Upstate team from that point. But they got to have confidence knowing that, hey, they feel like they can beat Clemson because they're one of the few teams I have this year.
USC Upstate has played Clemson tough, not just this year, but going back last year and maybe the year before that too. This has been a very competitive series. Like you said, they beat Clemson earlier this year in a neutral site game. So this team probably feels like maybe they owe them one. Not one of the games that's going to really help your RPI much. I can't remember where Upstate's ranked, but it's outside of the top 100. It might be closer to 200 and 100. I looked the other day, but I forgot what it was exactly. But if you lose it
hurts you.
Yeah, if you lose it, it hurts you. That's what I'm saying. It's not going to help you if you win it, but if you lose it, it hurts you. Absolutely need to take care of business, no doubt about it. But again, this is a team that has played Clemson very, very tough over the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, and so the Tigers looking to get win number 9 in a row on Tuesday night there, and then hope to – and that's important because, like you mentioned, you don't want to lose it because it'll hurt you in the RPI. It'll hurt your claim to want to get the top 8 seed. But you don't want to lose it because you don't want to lose that momentum that you got going into Doug Kingsmore against North Carolina on Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. So, and by the way, don't forget, people, it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. So Clemson plays at 6 o'clock Thursday night, 6 o'clock on Friday, and then I believe 1 o'clock on Saturday right now. Try to figure out what that means with the baseball tournament, with the softball tournament going on at the same time. Because I'm sure they if they can, they don't want to have both teams playing at the same time. So stay tuned to ClemsonTigers.com. Stay tuned to allClemsonTigers.com as well, as we release the schedule as soon as Clemson sends it to us. But just want to make sure you, if you're trying to figure out when these games are all going to be, and you want to be at both games, I think Clemson's going to do everything they can with the ESPN and the NCAA will allow them to do to try to make sure they accommodate the fans. So it's going to be a huge weekend, man. I'm excited, dude. I'm excited. I'm going to a wedding on Saturday, so I'm going to miss the Saturday events. By the way, for the people who don't know, that wedding is Tim Berets, the longtime sports information director at Clemson. He's finally getting married to Kay. So congratulations to Kay and Tim this weekend. I'll be at the wedding on Saturday, which is at 1:00, right when baseball's supposed to play. So do you think they'll move that Saturday game? What do you think? Do you think Clemson will move it just to accommodate the softball?
I don't know. That's hard to answer. I would not mind seeing that, though. Absolutely.
Yeah, make life easy for you, right? Because if y'all don't know, if I'm not working, that means JP's going to be covering both games because he's going to have to cover softball for me. So that's why he said he would not mind if it gets moved. It would help him out a lot.
This would be – well, now, I've been to softball games, but this will be my first time actually covering one. I'm usually over at the baseball field. Yeah,
so because usually you got me covering it, so you don't have to really usually worry about it. But because I'm gonna be off on Saturday, he's gonna help us out, and so I appreciate it. JP, man, anything you want to add to before we get out of here?
No, man. Come to the ballpark this weekend. It ought to be an electric atmosphere.
It should be, as Clemson looks to continue this hot streak they're on and position themselves maybe to be a number 8 national seed in the top 8. We'll see. They got a lot to do, still a lot of work to do, but if anybody could do it, it's this Clemson team, the way they've been playing. So until next time, please subscribe and like us on YouTube and leave a comment. We would appreciate it. For Jason Priester, I'm Will Vandervort. Thanks for watching us on All Clemson Tigers Baseball Show.